everybody. Just getting ready. Awesome. All right. So hi everybody. My name is Angus Wright. I also go by Angus by design. I'm gonna take a look here. I'm getting myself set up. My goal is to, within the next 60 minutes, do a practice where I read from this book. It's called the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying, and it's written by, this particular version is written by the Venerable Lama Lhanang Rinpoche, who's a teacher of the Vajrayana Buddhism of the Nyingma lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. So born in Tibet, he currently directs the Yigma Lingpa Center in San Diego and teaches throughout the United States and internationally. And then it's co-written by Mordy Levine, or Levine, and he's the president of the Yigma Lingpa Center and creator of the Meditation Pro series that has taught meditation to over 250,000 people. So I'm just going to take a look. Boop, boop, boop. Bear with me. All right. So if you're tuning in, feel free to use the chat box. What I'm going to do is, so I'm a Reiki master and practitioner, Reiki being sort of universal life energy. So I find it really kind of cool to kind of cultivate practice by reflecting on whoever shows up during the feed or whatever. I'm kind of, I guess, known as counterculture or what have you. But that's mostly because I use these things for other things. So I don't have a specific agenda. I don't have a specific goal to brand myself. This isn't a cry for help or anything like that. It's basically just a practice of reading a book. I got this one from my local library. So we're on chapter 5. So far in the last few days, I've done this as a practice. And chapter 1 was karma, how we live is how we die. Chapter 2 is what dies and what gets reborn. Chapter 3 is our consciousness after death. Chapter 4 is influencing our next rebirth. 5 is to start where we are now. And that's where we are right now. So welcome if you're just joining. I'm going to read chapter 5 of the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying. It's just more or less the practice of reflecting. And then I will pull a card. And this is the Spirit Animal Oracle by Collette Baron-Reid. So the deck comes with the guidebook. Each card has an illustration, kind of like a mantra or a quote to consider. And so again, it's just a reflection. So what I like to do, what my practice has been so far, is to read a chapter of the book, pull a card, see how it goes. So I'm seeing people are starting to join and pop in. So what I'm going to do as part of the practice as well is at the end of the practice, I'll go through, and today's practice will be dedicated to the people who joined. So if there's anything that you want to include in a mindfulness practice or a practice to kind of get a little bit more comfortable, feel free. This book I got from my local library. I live in Ottawa. This is the crinkly thing that I initially picked it up, but I live with some moral injury and some brain injury and some circumstances in which I don't always meet deadlines. I can't always keep up with the rest of the world, so to speak. So I ended up paying the fines, and now I'm the proud owner. So this is a practice where I can do some reflective work and then practice reading an old school book. But again, these are just for your consideration, and there's no expectation here. So share as you feel you'd like to share. Don't feel you have to do anything. If whatever I share resonates with you, please feel free to follow me. I'll just make a note as well. So you'll see me, sometimes I drop names, sometimes my account can seem dramatic, sometimes it can give off different vibes. That's okay. That's actually, I think, the way the universe works. And I'm an artist. I've been on the planet for nearly 50 years. And I'm the type of person that I've had a long-term practice in trying to support not only myself, but support other people. So welcome. So I'm going to get started. So Chapter 5 in the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. I love it because it's not a huge book. And while I can read it, it does take effort for me. So that's part of this practice. So it's good to see everybody. So far, we've got 16 people popping in. I think yesterday, by the end of the practice, it was something like 134 or 135. So I love that energy. That means that somewhere on this side of this conversation, it's touching and reaching other people, and that's the point that I like to make about connecting. So chapter 5, start where we are now. So I'll just invite you, because I'm going to do the same. Just see if there's a way in your chair, on your sofa, wherever you are, as you're walking. See if there's a way to just kind of get like 1% more comfortable, okay? I love this blanket, for example. I can think of that. The color is very comfortable. So just see if there's a way to get 1% more comfortable. And if you choose to, don't force yourself to breathe any certain way. But if you want to try kind of like a meditation technique, a breathing technique or a breathing exercise, while you're listening or paying attention or just doing what you do, just see if you can tune into how you're breathing. See if you can tell. It's a good start to, I find with anxiety and stuff, sometimes I can't force myself to change my breathing, but I can start from a place of just like knowing, right? Knowing how I'm breathing. So for me in this moment, I'm having some pretty good breaths. My sort of back is aligned. I'm comfortable. So that's just an invitation. So start where we are now. Regardless of what transpires in life, regardless of our religion, regardless of our politics, our wealth, our good luck or bad luck, we know that our state of mind is the only thing we can control. And the key to leading a life free of suffering, free of fear, and capable of dealing with whatever comes our way. This is not to say that everything in life is a bed of roses. The impermanence of life brings us sadness when our loved ones die, or when we hear of tragedies in our hometown or across the globe. But we can handle it. As we train our mind, we will have the tools to do so, and the uncertainty of life can also bring us joy. The transforming of our mind aids us in approaching death with confidence and peace, so that death is a natural part of our lives. The Buddha taught his followers to train their minds to reduce fear and grasping, which creates good karma, and to develop compassion for others, which reduces our permanent sense of self. For centuries, Buddhist practitioners have also followed these methods. And today, countless people practice them, whether Buddhist or not, because they experience benefits in their lives. So mind training through meditation, study, and prayer reduces our suffering and improves our state of mind in this lifetime. At the same time, these activities help us prepare for the bardo, the bardo experience when we die. As we polish our mind to improve our experience in our current lifetime, our experience as we approach death and in the bardo will automatically improve. So more specifically, we can develop 2 critical ingredients to happiness in this lifetime. In the bardo and in future lifetimes, compassion and wisdom. So I'm sorry I'm clearing my throat. And that's kind of a Canadian apology. But welcome everybody. So far we've had about 30 people fly through, all awesome energy. At the end I'm going to kind of scroll through and see what people share. If there's something you'd like to share, please feel free. I'm reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a guide to living and dying, and then I'm going to pull a card and see what the universe has to say about that. And my goal is to do it all and to get it done within 45 minutes. If you want to use the chat box to share any reflections, or if there's somebody that you want to send good energy to, or healing energy, or any of that, I don't like to use too many of those, kind of like, I don't know, the internet can be worn out of language sometimes. And so in this space, I just want you to know that the way I practice is I love to learn from every religion. I love to learn, like, they're all stories to me. I love to study. I love to understand why people believe. I definitely have knowledge and wisdom that comes with the understanding that, research shows, science shows that if we have a higher sense of ourself, or a higher sense of power, or we believe in something bigger or greater than us, we have better outcomes when it comes to mental health, and our mental health ties into our physical health, which ties into our emotional health. So when I speak of Reiki, Reiki is Japanese and it means universal life energy. So I'm a certified Reiki master. I've been practicing since 2007, but it was developed and created and came to fruition from a person named Dr. Mikao Usui, who basically combined what he knew about academia and real life stuff with going on a spiritual journey himself. And then he developed Reiki so that he could essentially teach his students basically how to make a mind-body connection within themselves. So that's what we're practicing here, okay? The other thing is if you take a look right here, this says family wrap. So one of the things that I often talk about or chat about, or what you might see if you take a look around the internet, is that I'm a wellness recovery action plan advanced level facilitator. So these are skills I have. These are tools I embody as a practice. But I'm not here to sell you an idea or a pipe dream or whatever. I'm here to practice recovery. I'm here to practice the act of meditating and cultivating meditation. By the way, I always have a little saying, I'm always on the brink of starting a cult or a commune. And that's just because I'm a very artistic, I love to talk, I'm very like brainstormy, adventure-y, explory. But again, it's like I like to show up with receipts. I like to show up with, tools. So that's essentially what I'm sharing here. So if something resonates with you, please feel free to share. Please feel free to come back. I'm reading chapter 5. There's many more chapters. If you want to see the previous chapters, I'm also popping these onto YouTube so that if people just want to listen in, because that's one of the wellness tools that I use when I'm going through what I go through, right? And the truth is we all go through what we go through. So in this space, I really want you, if you're listening, if you're watching, and really honestly just kind of projecting to the whole world, like I really want everybody to feel so affirmed within their own bodies, within their own thoughts and their minds. I radically accept that our minds, our thoughts, our brains, our bodies, they give us mixed messages, mixed signals. There's no doubt that we can tap into what people are going through. So this is an active practice of being and doing something different. So thank you for joining me. So compassion. Compassion is the desire to reduce suffering for all beings. We learn to develop compassion for ourselves and for others, regardless of who they are and whether we like them or not. How does this help us? As we develop compassion for others, we reduce our grasping and support our own ego. They are two sides of the same coin. What our mind looks at, and again, you see, this is why I practice. But when our minds looks at our situations with a focus on how it impacts me and we automatically view ourselves as separate from others. We note differences and create judgments based on me versus other. This mindset increases the support of our self-identity. And we know that the grasping of our ego increases. We increase negative karma. So more plainly, when our focus is primarily on ourselves, long-term inner happiness will never be ours. So developing compassion creates good karma and reduces our sense of separateness. And in a direct sense, we also feel better about ourselves. The impact of me and I thinking is weakened. In fact, our national state of being contains a strong sense of compassion for others, as well as ourselves. So the Dalai Lama has spoken extensively about this topic. When we feel love and kindness towards others, it not only makes others feel loved and cared for, but it helps us also to develop inner happiness and peace. He also says, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. Developing a mind of compassion is a critical ingredient to our own happiness in this life. A mind of compassion is also a critical ingredient for when we experience the bardo of dying, the bardo of luminosity, and the bardo of becoming. So, to paraphrase one Lama, when you develop compassion in this lifetime, it is as if the universe rolls out the red carpet when you enter the bardo. So if you're just joining, I'm reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying with Lama Lhanang Rinpoche and Mordy Levine. And then I'm going to pull a card from the spirit. Oh, my goodness. The Spirit Animal Oracle by Collette Baron-Reid. And we'll see how that ties in. So far we've had 65 people and 65 energies flow through. So if you're new, welcome. I'm Angus, right? I also go by Angus by design. I live in Canada, Ottawa. I'm a practitioner of many things, but yeah, it is what it is. This is just a practice of reading a book and taking some time, right, to take action. This shirt says it's a chicken farmer, so you can kind of tell maybe a little bit of my personality here. I'm going to shift in my chair and get a little bit more comfortable. So practicing developing compassion. So there are many ways to develop compassion. One simple way is to recite, meditate, or contemplate a prayer called the Four Immeasurables. The Four Immeasurables describes 4 attributes that we can develop for ourselves and others. So loving kindness, which is all one word, compassion, joy, and equanimity. So the prayer can be repeated numerous times as we contemplate its meaning. So I'm just going to read that prayer. Now, I just will say as well, so I'm a survivor of very traumatic circumstances around sort of like religion and people's belief systems and really strong kind of divisionary beliefs, but using religion for that. So in this space, I practice what we also practice in North American law. So we have freedom of religion in our belief system, but we also have the freedom from it. So if you're joining and the idea of prayer, that sort of thing is potentially triggering, please keep in mind that here we practice sort of making it what it means to us. So prayer is just the act of connecting outside of us with something higher, something bigger. Meditation could be considered prayer, guided thought, intentional thought, creative thinking. Any of those things can be seen that way. So please feel free to adopt and adapt and adjust. Again, this is for every individual to sort of practice reflecting on themselves. I'm not trying to project a certain image or a certain idea, right? I love learning from just every story there is. So here we go. So this is the prayer of the four measurables. Okay. So may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings rejoice in the well-being of others. May all beings live in peace, free from greed and hate. So line by line, it can be interpreted as follows. So loving kindness is the desire that all of us are friendly towards each other and wish each other well. Compassion is the desire that all beings, including ourselves, not suffer. Joy is being happy for others' happiness and success. Equanimity means not being strongly attached to things we like or strongly adverse to things we don't like. We develop equanimity when we reduce our aversions and desires and strive to keep an emotional keel. After all, everything always changes, so why grasp at something so strongly that inevitably will change? And we can also reflect on the prayer's meaning and study it over time, little by little. We can feel it in our minds and live it in our lives. Initially, when we repeat this prayer, we can hold ourselves and loved ones in our mind. Over time, while we recite the prayer, we might incorporate those who we feel neutral about in our minds. And eventually, while we recite the prayer, we might consider bringing into our mind people who we may not like or have not treated us well. People err or make mistakes. We err and make mistakes. We certainly do not condone bad behavior. However, many people behave and act poorly as a result of an upbringing of abuse or an environment that contributes to their behavior. We cannot pretend to know others' motivations when they cause harm or insult. We do not condone their behavior, and we also do not wish suffering on them. By wishing harm on others, we harm ourselves and develop negative karma by doing so. So the shift in how we view others and ourselves moves us closer and closer to a life with reduced ego, less stress, and greater happiness. Grudges are forgotten. Self-talk about the past or future, what should have or might have been, fades. This leaves us with a life enjoying and experiencing the present moment as it is. As we grow in this new and beautiful direction, we also see that we can be an active force in making the world a more beautiful and peaceful place. So as we become more sensitive to the less fortunate, we feel compelled to help others. And with our evolving state of mind, we can use our actions of body, speech, and mind to bring peace and less suffering to those around us. All right, wow. The development of compassion leads to a more peaceful death, a death with less worry, less stress, a better experience in the bardo, and eventually a more auspicious rebirth. Additional practices that we can incorporate, or that can incorporate a mind of compassion into our daily lives, are found in Appendix A. All right, wow. I guess appendix A is at the back. So if you're just joining us, so far we've had 103 people. About 20. I have got about 30 minutes before I reach the max of my goal. My goal being to read chapter 5 of the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, a guide to living and dying, Lama, Lhanang, Rinpoche, and Mordy Levine. If you see on the spine, this is so this book I signed out from my local library. I was unable to make all of the brain connections or the heart, brain, body, blah, blah, blah connections happen. Unfortunately, wasn't able to be accommodated at the moment and had to pay the fine. And so that meant that the book became mine. So I feel like that's good karma because I'm enjoying the book so far. And really, hopefully, this is restorative karma by sharing the book as a practice, right? But essentially, at the end of the day, I'm sitting in my yellow chair. I've got my black and white dog on a leopard print heated blanket. I've got my Wellness Recovery Action Plan family book where we can explore what personal crisis means, but how we can look at other family. I've got a little monkey, a little brass monkey looking in a mirror. Got a cup of coffee here. The goal is to read the rest of this chapter and then pull out a card for inspiration, see how it ties in. If you find a mug that's about the size of your head, you can claim to only drink 1 cup of coffee a day. That is the loophole for coffee lovers. All right, so what's left of the chapter is wisdom, and then practice developing wisdom, and then how are wisdom and compassion related. So part of this practice is that if you want to share something in the chat, part of it is I'm going to kind of help try to release any sort of negativity or karma or support. I'm going to assume that every single person, there's been 117 so far. I'm going to, basically go by the assumption that every single person who's locked eyes or landed here or didn't land here, they all deserve like peace, love, and compassion and healing and recovery and not to suffer. And so at the end, I'm going to kind of look at all the names and I'm going to kind of dedicate the practice of pulling the oracle card and the reflection. And, hi, Pinky Stinky. It's great to see you here. I'm so glad. Please make yourself comfy. I do repost these, so if any of it, resonates, please, feel free to let me, I'll direct you over to where the recording is, okay? Because part of why I do a chapter reading, and this is where I know I'm a pretty bird, is that sometimes I'll actually listen to my own voice, read the chapter. Because sometimes for my mental health, sometimes for my, sense of reality, because, this is the TikTok, right? What I have found is the more I explore it, it's like all these ideas, all this energy, what people are going through. I'm a very empathic animal, right? So it's all about how can I don't know, be of support and love while recognizing that we're all broke. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Pinky. So wisdom. Understanding wisdom is the second key ingredient to living a happy life. The development of wisdom also ensures a better experience in the bardo and future lifetimes. Wisdom, as the Buddha taught, means seeing reality accurately without illusions. Earlier, we asked, does our self exist? Yes and no. It exists, but not the way we usually think. Our self is constantly changing and evolving. It does not have any permanent existence. We therefore say that the self is empty of inherent existence. The more we come to understand this over time, that our self is ever-changing and impermanent, the more we can feel and live with more freedom and liberation. Not only is our self impermanent, everything is. All people, things, and situations change. Coming to understand impermanence can be painful, but it can also lead to freedom. This understanding helps us to reduce our grasping. After all, there is nothing solid to hold on to. Grasping at something that isn't there causes us suffering when reality splashes water in our face and we find ourselves, or we find out we were chasing an illusion. Sounds like my first marriage. I digress. Impermanence also allows us to see how we are all interrelated. Change happens when something causes it to happen. Change does not happen independently of anything. The law of cause and effect, karma, is another way of experiencing how we are all dependent and related to each other. All that happens to us is a result of something or someone. So, Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Zen master, calls this phenomenon interbeing, as he so eloquently describes it. Emptiness does not mean nothingness. Saying that we are empty does not mean that we do not exist. No matter if something is full or empty, that thing clearly needs to be there in the first place. When we say a cup is empty, the cup must be there in order to be empty. When we say that we are empty, it means that we must be there in order to be empty of a permanent, separate self. So about 30 years ago, I was looking for an English word to describe our deep interconnection with everything else. I liked the word togetherness, but I finally came up with the word interbeing. The verb to be can be misleading because we cannot be by ourselves alone. To be is always to interbe. If we combine the prefix inter with the verb to be, we have a new verb, interbe. To interbe and the action of interbeing reflects reality more accurately. We inter-are with one another and with all life. That's really cool because I think of it, there's the I, there's the you, there's the we, and then there's the all, right? That's kind of cool. So the realization of emptiness and impermanence are critical ingredients to our own happiness in this life, as well as in the time period approaching our death, the bardo of this life. As we die, the bardo of dying and beyond, the bardo of luminosity. So if you're just joining, I'm just reading from this book. It's called The Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying. This one is like a little guidebook. So the Tibetan Book of the Dead is actually like much deeper, much bigger, much more, there's many versions, there's many ideas, there's many creations around, interpretation and stuff like that. But that's the point, right? It's all about how we interpret it. I would encourage you that if any part of it resonates with you, what can you do to turn it into your practice, your reflection? You, as well as I, we are enough. Our stories, our origin story, our lineage story, our, history is important. It's wonderful, right? The more we can know about where we come from, right? And then the more we can practice that interconnection, right? Then the more we can kind of learn from each other, right? So that's awesome. All right, have a good one, Pinky. It's great to see you. And again, you'll be able to hear the card later on if you want to tune in, or I'll let you know. So how are wisdom and compassion related? Actually, let me see if I can find, there's Appendix A. Why don't I'm just gonna, it's pretty long, so maybe Appendix A will be its own thing. But how are wisdom and compassion related? The more compassionate we become, the more positive karma we accumulate. We are reducing our clinging to who we think we are and become more open to the reality of our ever-changing illusory self-identity. When we recognize that we all want to be happy and suffer as little as possible, we realize that we are all the same. This mindset reduces the me versus the other separateness mentality. Understanding the interrelated nature of everything is another way of understanding that nothing is impermanent. We are connected to each other and dependent upon each other. Everything changes, and that is okay. This is normal, just like the law of gravity. Conversely, when we understand impermanence and that everything is interdependent, this can naturally lead to compassion for everyone. We understand that we are all interconnected. No borders really exist between you and me. There is no dualism. There is no you over there and me over here. No tribalism. In essence, we can have more of a sense of oneness. As the Dalai Lama says, we are all brothers and sisters. Compassion leads to wisdom, and wisdom leads to compassion. Development of these two key ingredients leads us to a happier life, a more peaceful death, and an auspicious rebirth. All right, so that was chapter 5 of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And what I'm going to do is, and it's funny, the last few times I read the sort of the dedication in the beginning. But the first quote is, "The past is history, The future is mystery, and the present moment is a gift. And that's Lama Lhanang Rinpoche. And what we learn in this chapter is also listed as the definition or the dedication. So may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings rejoice in the well-being of others, and may all beings live in peace, free from greed and hatred. And that's the 4 immeasurables. As I say, I got this book from my public library. I ended up being fined for keeping it too long. Not an excuse, but sometimes my brain keeps me from doing even the simplest of things, right? So that's why I cultivate a practice. And so far, we've had 151 folks fly through this practice. So that's awesome. That's actually an increase from yesterday. So I love that, because part of this is just an act of being with people, trying to sort of do what I do for comfort, for relaxation, for peace. So I'm about to pull a card from the Collette Baron-Reid, the Spirit Animal Oracle. I use this as a wellness tool. It's a great tool for reflection, especially if I'm really kind of going through something, or I kind of want to tap into like universal wisdom or something bigger, something outside, but something safe, right? So, and I like the cards because it brings in an element of, you know, improvisation. It brings in like, who could have predicted? Who, you know, there's no set path. As much as I have an outline, so I'm gonna look. I want to go back up. I want to look at all the names that popped in, because I kind of want to put that energy into the cards, right? That's just a me. This is a me practice. I've been using cards. I have a bunch of decks for reflection. You know, I know some people act like they're, you know, at a carnival, or they're like Mecca Lecca High, Mecca Hiney Ho, all these things. There's no real, like, everybody can tap into their deeper sense. Everybody has an origin story. Everybody has a lineage and an ancestry. And the beauty is in our stories, and then how we share our stories. And I like to use tools and practices and ideas from around the world, all of them rooted in some form of truth or evidence. And so this is a space of washing away those judgments, being able to just, you know, be who I am, do what I want to do, and then open it up. And it really is a portal, right? Like, so me and anybody else who goes live, no matter what we're saying or doing, that is karma we're generating. So I am very much about, you know, camp rules, like leave it in better shape than you found it. Everybody's welcome here, good, bad. No matter what we've done, if we're here and we're alive and our goal is to recover and be healthy and be well, then you're welcome. You're welcome to be here. You're welcome to share. And so far, there's 155 people on my list. And some of them have names, some of them have nicknames, but you know, that's what I love about it, is we have the name that was given to us. We have our government names, whatever government we're part of, And then we have our names of choice. Those can be nicknames, they can be character names, usernames, as long as there's a soul behind all of it. That's what I'm trying to include in this practice. So I have 10 minutes because I want to keep it under an hour. And so I'm just going to show you that I'm pulling a random card. This pull, the reflections are for everyone, of course. I'm sort of dedicating them to us, the 159 now, and whatever number shows up before we end. So this is the Collette Baron-Reid Animal Spirit. We read a chapter from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and we'll see if this ties together. Okay, so I'll just take the top card. Ooh, we've had this one. And it's the Panther Spirit. How cool is that? And the message is reclaim your power. So I'm going to get my little monkey friend here to hang on. Panther. So there's 2 messages in each of these. One is an oracle message. "44. And one is a protection message. Okay, so this again, none of this is asking you to suspend your belief system. It's not asking you to see any deeper. Like, I'm not, I'm just a guy who uses this as a tool. These are, I love the sort of random acts of reflection that these pull. So, Panther Spirit, reclaim your power, the oracle message. It takes courage to face challenges. And right now, Panther Spirit is here to say that you are braver than you think. Now is the time to take a risk and step into a different aspect of your being. Speak as you have never spoken before. Act as you have always dreamed you might have the courage to act. Love fearlessly and fully, and expect to feel the adrenaline rush as you are initiated into a new, braver, bolder self. Panther Spirit says the time for dreaming about what you want to do is giving away to the first courageous act towards reclaiming your Panther Spirit and power. Your new identity may feel strange at first, but you have what it takes, and your soul wants this. Be bold. And then the protection message in the Panther, right over there. Are you feeling shaky because you have made a bold move and have not yet seen confirmation that everything is going to work out? Or is fear holding you back? Are you afraid to act until all risk of failure has been removed? The moment when there is no risk whatsoever will never come. So follow the urging of your Panther Spirit within and look your fear in the eye. Have you ever heard the famous line, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself"? Stare down your fear and it will retreat, and make way for your courage to fill you head to toe. Perhaps you are afraid you can't trust the power that is rising in you. And you fear the qualities you will find within when you look deeply at why you resist the challenge before you. Every part of you, no matter how dark it may seem, has a light quality. So be bold and face it. Own the light and make peace with your shadow. Spirit trusts you. So be brave and trust yourself. Awesome. And I did that with like 4.5 minutes to spare. So again, what we just did is we took a look at the Collette Baron-Reid Spirit Animal Oracle. I'm an animal lover. There's all sorts of cards and inspiration in here. Sometimes when I'm feeling in my own, up in my emotions, up in my feels, it's a great tool to simply reflect on something that's not that, right? Yesterday I talked about a tool that I use called Catch, Check, Change. So people who have all sorts of thoughts and feelings and all of that can use this tool. It's a skill. It's a skill we develop. Catch is, how are we catching what our thoughts are? How are we checking them? So how are we checking them to be, is it true to just me? Is it true to me and everybody else? And how do we change how we see it, right? How do we want that to reflect outside? And so I believe as artists, and I believe we're all artists, we have the right to pull from every experience, everything that we know and everything that we've seen to articulate ourselves and to express ourselves. And I don't think anybody should really be heavily judged for that. It should be a combination of what we do and what we know, right? But also where we're going, our actions. And so the panther, Black Panther, said, reclaim your power. So you can see it as the Black Panther. The quote, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself, is pretty interesting. The Black Panther movement is pretty cool. But there's also the Pink Panther. And you know the energy the Pink Panther had, right? And if you don't, go check out the old story. It's pretty cool. But you could be a yellow panther. You could be a striped panther. Like, we get to be what we want to be. This is just a practice, right? We read from the book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. We read chapter 5. Again, this is just this is their ideas. And in the beginning, I told you what they're about. So they teach meditation, and the guys from Tibet and the whole bit. So again, I just shared a chapter of a book. I'm not trying to sell you land in Rio de Janeiro. I'm not trying to, say bunnies are good, bad, or indifferent. Some of them are quite sexy, I'm going to tell you, and some talented music, mind you. But again, you're going to go back out there into the World Wide Web, and you're still you. So what I loved was, again, that act of loving kindness, and that's a practice. Loving kindness meditation, for example, is an actual yoga practice. It's a practice of action where we can actually do loving kindness meditation. The nice part of that is we sneak ourselves into that. So we get to have our ego, we get to love other people, we get to be big giant hippies when we do loving kindness meditation. The beauty is that if anybody judges us for it, we get to go, hey, I didn't make it up. I just tried it. Like, I don't know. Point over to the pros or whatever. We don't have to accept other people's judgment. We get to be who we are, and how we spend our time is important. So that's my little bip. I gotta log off because I gotta keep it under an hour, but tune back in. I'll be back tomorrow with this. Thanks, everybody.